Well, g'day there, and welcome to the first episode of Welcome to Consciousness. And I want to thank you for taking the time out to be here to listen to this. And I've titled the first episode, It's Not What You Think It Is. And I invite you to come along on a little journey through this episode and the ones to follow into consciousness, into becoming conscious yourself. And I call it It's Not What You Think It Is, because whatever you think consciousness is, I'm here to tell you it's not that. Because consciousness is beyond our thinking. It's beyond our thinking mind. It's beyond what we know. It's beyond what we think that we are. And so this is a total new way of looking at life, a total new approach. And it takes some getting used to. So my passion and interest in consciousness, I feel, started when I was very young. I had this real desire for something that was more, that was out there, this energy, this unknown, the mysterious, the mystical. Now, I was taught to call it God, and that was part of my journey, which I'll come back to as well. But my journey with consciousness really took a major turn 5 years ago. I was in the thick of the dark night of a soul. And what that meant was I was in the thick of crisis. I'd had a major burnout, breakdown of my mind, my emotions, spirit, my body. I had a complete identity crisis. I had a complete existential crisis. I didn't know who I was. I lost my dreams. My belief system that I had completely had crumbled within me. And I was in survival mode. I was very anxious. I had depression. I was experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. And every day was survival. At this point, I had started a business, and I was also raising 4 young kids. Now, you might think that that's a crazy time to have kids, but when I started having kids, I wasn't planning on having a breakdown or a burnout. And that's the way life goes sometimes. In the big picture, I now realize that while this has been the most challenging experience and journey, it was the catalyst that really helped me to wake up to a deeper truth that's in me. And so I'm in this place where I am stressed, I'm surviving. Every day I'm waking up just feeling broken. My heart felt shattered into 1,000 pieces. I'd have diarrhea almost every day because I was just so anxious. And I wanted to build my carpet cleaning business. This was the business that I started. And so I was listening to a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire. And on there they were talking about a book called The Power of Now and how much it had helped them, and about being in the now moment and being present. And at this point, I knew my mind was chaos. I couldn't switch off. I couldn't become calm. I knew that I needed what they were talking about. And I thought this is some kind of business, self-development kind of book. So I ordered the book, and then I get the book, and it says on a guide to spiritual enlightenment. And I'm thinking, that's strange. I didn't think this was a spiritual book. Anyway, I took out some time and I opened this book. And I started reading the pages, and it was like nothing that I'd ever read before or heard of before. And for the first time in that 1 hour, I began to feel peace. My mind began to slow. I began to experience just this sense of okayness with life, this presence. And this really sparked something in me, because I couldn't find this anywhere. I was searching down here, down there, looking for different things that could help. And really, I had closed off. I was giving up. I didn't trust people anymore. I felt like I'd put my trust and had been burnt, and there was nowhere else to go. And this power of now began to talk about consciousness. And I knew that there was something in it, something that I needed. Now, the thing was, when I went back to my life, back to every day, working, kids, life, I lost all that. I went back into the chaos. I couldn't sustain that presence. I couldn't integrate it. And so I would carve out as much time as I could on the weekend to spend some time reading The Power of Now, to be able to experience some of that peace again. And that was the only book basically that I read for about 2 years, because my belief system had been so smashed, my identity had been so smashed. I couldn't consume information. I couldn't process it. I didn't know what I thought about anything. I hid from people. I didn't want to be around it. I didn't know what my opinion was or what I really believed in anymore. And so this book gave me permission to actually let go of all of that, to stop trying to figure it out, and to be present in the moment. And in that place, that opened up a sense of peace. And I started thinking, well, maybe this is what I was looking for all along. And I got to a point where I wanted consciousness, but I couldn't experience that presence very much. I couldn't maintain it. Like I said, I hadn't integrated it. And so I'm like, I need to really change something. And so I opened up to personal growth and development, and I hired a personal coach at that point, and I just applied myself fully. Now, I thought this would be a simple kind of easy journey, apply some steps, get some results, get my energy back, get my passion, find my purpose, be on top of the world kind of thing. And what this did was took me into a journey of becoming conscious, a journey of greater expanding awareness, which was also a journey of looking into the deep layers of conditioning, of fears, of the traumas, of all the things that I had suppressed, the emotions. And that journey continues to today. And so if you're here and you're listening, I invite you to walk along this journey with me. I've been walking it as my almost full-time focus for the past 3.5 years now. I've poured my time, my energy, my money into my growth, my evolution, really so that I could become more conscious and embody this consciousness, which I know is where I find myself and experience my truest sense of self. And I know that the same is true for you. And this is where we come to my point that it's not what you think it is. Now, I've journeyed through this thinking that being conscious is going to be like this, that it must feel like this, or it's going to look like that. And what I can tell you is that it's not what you think it is. If you're trying to understand, if you're kind of trying to comprehend what consciousness is, you will miss it. You will not experience it. The way that we experience consciousness, our consciousness, is through ultimately letting go of what we think we know. It's letting go of the thinking mind, the analytical mind that thinks it knows, that holds our identities, that holds our beliefs, that holds everything that we think that we know. And this is why a crisis can be so challenging, because everything we thought that we were, especially if you're going to a full dark night of the soul where you fully break down and you don't know who you are anymore. Now, you may not need to go into that journey to start to come into an awareness of consciousness. And I honestly hope you don't, because I think you can learn who you are and embody this greater consciousness without crisis and without pain and suffering, although it seems to be a common pattern for most people. And so if that's you, if you're going through things, even if you've kept it to yourself and you're struggling, or you're struggling with mental illness, or there's trauma coming up and you don't know how to deal with it and you feel very alone, or there's just paths within yourself that you haven't allowed yourself to go down and to explore, because that's just not what we do. No one else has done that. No one encourages you to do that. Then I invite you to open up to that and to take this path, because really this is a pathway to yourself. Sometimes we call it the higher self or the authentic self. It's your true self. It's the journey to you. Now, you know who you are deep down. And everything that I'm going to tell you, and any teacher of consciousness or of even spirituality or anything, energy, anything in that scope, anything that anyone can teach you is something that you already know. So they're not teaching you anything. I'm not here to teach you anything new. I'm ultimately here to help you remember what you already know deep within. It's remembering even a lot of what you knew as a child, but that those parts of you that weren't accepted to express, and you may have experienced a rejection or a abandonment, or you had love withdrawn or emotion withdrawn when you expressed yourself in certain ways because the adults around you had ultimately rejected those parts of themselves because their parents had. All right. So we hold on to these patterns that we learn. And so becoming conscious is about bringing awareness to all those patterns. Why am I living the way that I'm living? Why do I think the way that I think? Why do I have the beliefs that I have? What has shaped me? Why do I relate to people in a certain way? Why do I relate to work in a certain way? Why do I relate to money in a certain way? And we start to look at all these beliefs that have formed, that have come from our conditioning, which has come from our family, from our culture, from society around us, from education. And we start to realize that that is all part of our mind. That is all part of who we think we are. It's all part of what we think life is. And so the journey to consciousness is the invitation to lay that down, to let down what we think we know about life and about who we are, and to lay down that kind of facade or that mask that we're living in, that the majority of people are pouring their energy into upholding, letting those walls come down. And in that place, you'd think, well, that sounds boring if you let go of your mind and what you know. But in that place, you connect to life in such a far more expanded way. You connect with life in such a deeper way. You begin to find yourself. It's like yourself, your true self, begins to shine through. You begin to be able to drop the layers of fears, trapped emotion, trauma, conditioning, all the identities, all the roles, all the responsibilities, the expectations that you've put on yourself, that your environment and the conditioning you've received has put on you. And you can begin to let that go. Connect with yourself on a much deeper level. And then you can form beliefs from that place, new beliefs. And when I had these really low, limiting, fearful beliefs, now I can realize actually it's safe for me to have more empowering beliefs, more positive, loving beliefs towards myself and towards others, towards life. And it does require us to question our conditioning, but so much more than questioning it, it's actually detaching from it. So we'll go more into this in the next episode and in future episodes. But the biggest thing that stands in the way of us expanding our consciousness is our attachment and our identification with our mind, which is often, in a nutshell, referred to as the ego. And we essentially have an addiction to our own ego, to our own mind, our thinking, our beliefs. And we will fight tooth and nail, like our life depends on it, to keep that ego in place. Biggest fear of the ego is its own death. It doesn't want to be let go of. It doesn't want to be found. So it will do everything that it needs to keep you trapped in its bubble, in a sense, because it sees itself as safe there. It sees itself as comfortable, and that's the safest way to be. where you can survive and you can live your life. But it's the opposite way around in a deeper truth. When you release that, that is actually the safest and fullest and truest way. Now, I'm not particularly going to try and teach you the science of consciousness, the philosophy of consciousness, the theology of consciousness. If we go down those paths, we don't necessarily become more conscious. We just have more information, more understanding, which is our number one blockage to becoming more conscious. So we don't need that. We just need to bring awareness to this present moment, to who I am as a consciousness, and to the way my mind is thinking and the way that my mind has been programmed just through my life experiences and everything that I think that I am, and start to create some space between me and that thinking mind. And that might just look like observing it. It might just look like watching it. It may look like questioning it. But it's questioning it not with another belief, it's questioning it with some space. Let me just watch why I think this way. What am I thinking? Where did that come from? Why am I feeling this way? Where did that come from? And allow yourself to let those things go. And allow yourself to start to feel into your heart space, because the heart is like our home base when it comes to consciousness. It is our home base when it comes to connecting with the greater consciousness that we are, that we're a part of. And just before we finish, I want you to know that the word consciousness is just a word. It's a word that points towards something. Okay? I'm not trying to teach you a new set of information, a new theology or belief about consciousness. What we're talking about really only points. It's like a signpost. If you see a signpost to Melbourne, then that signpost is not Melbourne. It's only pointing towards where Melbourne is. When you're in Melbourne, you're experiencing Melbourne. When we're talking about consciousness, when we're describing what it's like, we are pointing towards something. The understanding of consciousness is not consciousness. The knowledge of consciousness is not consciousness. We get to a point where we need to let go of the terms, let go of the thoughts, and experience and feel and embody and integrate the consciousness into our minds, into our bodies, into our emotions, and into our spirits, because they're all connected. And allow this expanded consciousness to start to shape the way that we see life. There have also been many other terms for consciousness that different cultures have used. And again, it doesn't really matter, and I'll go into them more in future episodes just to give you more context and understanding. This isn't a new thing. But the real hang-up is that a lot of cultures have used certain terms to talk about consciousness or pure consciousness, and they become attached and identified to the beliefs around that, to the theology around that, and so they don't let it go. Therefore, they don't actually experience the fullness and the vastness, the greatness of the greater consciousness that there is for us to experience. Consciousness is the energy, it's the life form, it's the life force that precedes all life. It's the life that's non-physical. So I invite you on this journey. It's a journey of your own truth. It's a journey of your own empowerment. It's a journey to your higher self, because it's releasing all the lower vibe things that you've attached to. It's not an easy one to walk. because it's not easy to peel back the layers and look at the things that you've suppressed and give attention to the fears, because all those things have energy in them, and that energy's been squashed and suppressed in your subconscious mind. And so when you allow that to come into your conscious mind through consciousness, through awareness, then it can take energy and it can take time to just release those things so that we can detach from them and then integrate new ways and new perspectives of looking at life. So I really look forward to where this journey goes. This is the start of what I feel is going to be a lot of my life work. So if you have any questions about this, if you're interested in this, I invite you to reach out through whatever channel that you're watching this on. And I would love to hear your journey. I'd love to hear your experience so far. And along the way, it might not be on this first episode, but love to hear your questions and your challenges that you're having on your journey with consciousness. So have a fantastic day. Again, thanks for taking the time. I know how valuable your time is. Thanks for taking the time to dig into what I think is the best kept secret, and that is consciousness. We'll see you next time. So there we have it. Thanks for joining me on Welcome to Consciousness. My name's Michael Reed, and I'm here to help you consciously live and create your life. If you enjoyed this, please click subscribe and follow. There's a lot more to come. Also, if you could rate or review it, this would really help others find this show. Also, if you want to share this with a friend or on your social media, please go for it. And if you have any questions about your journey, please reach out. I'll answer them directly or on the podcast. And lastly, if you want personal help consciously living and creating your life, I've created a coaching program that helps you do just that. You can head to my website for more info. So thanks again. Have a fantastic day. Look forward to seeing you next time.